Today I'll be discussing about eye, human eye. So what do we mean by eye? Eyes are parts of sensory nervous system. So first we have to understand what we mean by sensory nervous system. The sensory nervous system is the part of the nervous system responsible for processing sensory informations. So if we have to write about sensory nervous system, what is that? The sensory nervous system is the part of the nervous system responsible for processing sensory information. So what I have written, the sensory nervous system is the part of the nervous system responsible for processing sensory information. So eyes are parts of sensory nervous system. So what do we mean by eyes? Eyes are parts of sensory nervous system. Now, eyes are paired of sense organs which are roughly spherical in shape. They are not actually spherical in shape, they are roughly spherical in shape that reacts to the light and allows vision. So eyes are paired sense organs roughly spherical in shape, which are roughly spherical in shape, that reacts to light and allows vision. Today I will not go into the details of the eye because what you require in ICSE examination, I will go after that. So this is eyes. Eyes are the parts of the sensory nervous system, and eyes are paired sense organs roughly spherical in shape that reacts to light and allows vision. Definitely in the ICSE examination, the definition of eye will not come. That is rest assured. But you have to know what are eyes. Now we will discuss about the location of the eyes. Where exactly the eyes are located. Eyes are like balls. What I have said earlier, it is roughly spherical in shape. So it is called eyeball. So eyeballs are placed within the socket of the orbits. So eyeballs are placed within the socket of the orbits. Now we have to understand what we mean by orbit, and another thing, why we are considering eye as eyeball. It is like a ball. It is spherical in shape, but it is not actually spherical in shape. It is roughly spherical in shape. If we see the shape of the eye, it is almost like this. It is almost like this. So this is the eyeball. So eyeballs are placed within the socket of the orbits. Now what do we mean by orbit? Orbit are the bony cavities in the skull within which the eyeballs are located. Within the skull, there are bony cavities, and these bony cavities are called orbits. And within these bony cavities, within these orbits, the eyeballs are located. So orbit, what are orbits? Orbits are the bony cavities in the skull within which eyeballs are located. Eyeballs are located. So, if anyone asks you what is the location of the eyes, what you will say? You will say that eyeballs are placed within the socket of the orbits. So, within this orbits, within the socket of these orbits, eyeballs are located. Now, to study the basic structure of the eyeball, we need to know two things. What are those two things? What are the walls of the eyeball and what are the structures inside it? So, before going to study about the structures of the eyeball, we should know one thing. While studying the structure of the eyeball, we should know two things. What are the walls of the eyeball? These eyeballs consist of some walls. What are the walls of these eyeballs? And what are the structures within this eyeball? So these basic things we have to know. First, we'll discuss about the walls of the eyeball. First, we'll discuss about the walls of the eyeball. Now, the walls of the eyeball has three layers. The walls of the eyeballs has three layers. 1, 2 and 3. 1, 2 and 3. The walls of the eyeballs are having three layers. Rather, I will say 1, 2 and 3. Now, the outermost layer. First one is the outermost layer. The outermost layer of the eyeball is the protective layer, protective layer. The outermost layer of the eyeball is the protective layer. If we consider these as the eyeball, if we consider this as the eyeball, the outermost layer is the protective layer. Definitely it has some name and we'll discuss that later. First, let us understand how many layers are there and what are these layers. The outermost layer, this one is the outermost layer, which is the protective layer. Second one is the middle layer. The middle layer, which is highly vascular. The middle layer is highly vascular layer. Highly vascular layer. And this forms the nutritive coat. This forms the nutritive coat. What does it mean by that? Nutritive coat. Nutritive coat. Because this layer is responsible to provide the nutrition to the eye. The middle layer, which is highly vascular layer, provides nutrition to the eye. Therefore, this forms the nutritive coat. Now, this middle layer is called, we'll discuss later. Still I am saying in short, this middle layer is called uveal tract. Uveal tract. This middle layer, if we see this middle layer, this is called uveal tract. And it has a posterior part and an anterior part. The posterior part, this is the posterior part. This posterior part is called choroid, while the anterior part, this is the anterior part, the front part. The anterior part forms the ciliary body and the iris. We'll discuss later. This middle layer is called uveal tract, and the posterior part, that is the backside of this uveal tract, is called choroid, and the anterior part of this uveal tract forms the ciliary body and iris. Now, the innermost layer, this is the innermost layer. We have already said that the walls of the eyeball consist of three layers: the outermost layer, the middle layer and the innermost layer. The innermost layer is the sensory layer, which is called the retina. So number 3, the innermost layer, which is the sensory layer, this is called retina. Now we will discuss the every layer of the eyes, every walls of the eyes, the outermost layer of the eyeball, the middle layer and the innermost layer. We'll discuss in details about this walls of the eyeball or the layers of the eyeball. First, let us discuss about the outermost layer. First, we'll discuss about the outermost layer of the eyeball. What I have said, the outermost layer is the protective layer. The outermost layer is the protective layer of the eyeball. Now, the outermost layer consists of two important components. The outermost layer consists of two important components. What are those? The outermost layer consists of two important components. There, number one is sclera, and the another one is cornea. So the outermost layer, which forms the protective layer, consists of two important components. One is sclera and another one is cornea. Now the sclera is the white of the eyeball. The sclera is called the white of the eyeball. White of the eyeball. It is white. And this is an opaque structure. This is opaque structure. This is an opaque structure. And cornea, this cornea is the transparent layer. This cornea is the transparent layer. The transparent layer. And this cornea allows light to enter the eye. This allows the light to enter the eye, because it is transparent. So if we see the vertical section of an eye, if we draw the vertical section of an eye, so the outermost layer, what is that? The outermost layer, this is the protective layer. This forms the protective layer. And this is called sclera. This part is called sclera. And this is opaque. This part is called sclera and this is opaque. Now, this part is transparent. This part is transparent. And this is called cornea. So, this transparent part is called cornea, which forms a protective coat. And this part is opaque, and this is called sclera. And both cornea and sclera constitute the outermost layer, outermost wall of the eyeball, and this forms the protective layer. Now, actually, sclera continues forward to form the transparent cornea. If we see this one is sclera, this part is sclera. This sclera continues forward to form the transparent cornea. And the junction of the cornea and sclera is called corneoscleral junction. I should write it down, otherwise you will forget. First, you should understand that this sclera forms the 4/5 part of the eyeball. This sclera forms the 4/5 part of the eyeball. That is, it makes the major part of the eyeball. So sclera forms the posterior means backside, posterior 4/5 part of the eyeball. Sclera forms the posterior 4/5 part of the eyeball, whereas cornea forms the 1/5 part of the eyeball. In the front, cornea forms the only 1/5 part of the eyeball. Now, what I have said, this sclera continues forward to form the transparent cornea. I should write it down. The sclera continues forward to form the transparent cornea. Sclera itself is opaque, but it continues forward to form the transparent cornea. And the junction of cornea and sclera, the junction of the cornea and sclera is called corneoscleral junction. So I should write it down so that you can remember this. The junction of the cornea and sclera is called corneoscleral junction. Corneo comes from cornea, scleral comes from sclera, and junction means where cornea and sclera meets. The junction of cornea and sclera is called corneoscleral junction. So you have to remember this, and you have to remember this. So I think the outermost layer of the eyeball is clear to you. So both sclera and cornea forms the outermost layer of the eyeball, which is basically the protective layer. And sclera is the white of the eyeball. Sclera forms the white of the eyeball, whereas cornea is the transparent layer. Why it is transparent? Because cornea allows the light to enter the eye, so it is transparent. But sclera is opaque. It does not allow the light to enter through it. It does not allow the light to pass through it because it is opaque. And the sclera forms the posterior, that is the backside of the fifth part of the eyeball, whereas cornea forms the 1/5 part of the eyeball. And the sclera continues forward, to form the transparent cornea. The opaque sclera continues forward to form the transparent sclera, and the junction between the cornea and sclera is known as corneoscleral junction. Hope this is clear to you. Now I will be discussing about the middle vascular layer. I have skipped one thing. Before we go to the middle vascular layer, one thing I must say that in ICSE 2018, there was a question that name the layer of the eyeball that forms the transparent cornea. We have already said here what is called. This is sclera. This sclera is opaque, and this sclera continues forward. This sclera continues forward to form the transparent cornea. So the question was, name the layer of the eyeball. Name the layer of the eyeball which forms the transparent cornea. So which layer forms the transparent cornea? The answer will be sclera. I should write this question and you should note this. I should write this question and you should note this. Name the layer of the eyeball. Name the layer of the eyeball that forms. Name the layer of the eyeball that forms the transparent cornea. And this question came in ICSE 2018. What I've said? Name the layer of the eyeball that forms the transparent cornea. The answer will be sclera. This is very important because this question came in ICSE 2018. Let me highlight this question. So I think you have understood that the outermost layer which forms the protective layer consists of two important components. One is sclera and another is cornea. The sclera forms the posterior 4/5 part of the eyeball, whereas the remaining 1/5 The remaining 1/5 part of the eyeball in the front forms by the transparent cornea, and both sclera and cornea forms the outermost protective layer of the eyeball. And sclera continues, the sclera is opaque, and the opaque sclera continues forward to form the transparent cornea. And the question came in ICSE, name the layer of the eyeball that forms the transparent cornea. The answer will be sclera. The layer of the eyeball which forms the transparent cornea is sclera. Hope this is clear to you. Now we can proceed to the next part, that is the middle layer of the eyeball. Now we will discuss about the middle layer of the eyeball. The middle layer of the eyeball. What I have said, this middle layer is highly vascular. This middle layer is highly vascular. So this is highly vascular layer. And this middle layer forms the nutritive coat. This middle layer forms the nutritive coat. What I have said, what do we mean by this layer? This middle layer forms the nutritive coat because this layer provides the nutrition to the eye. That is why this middle layer is called the nutritive coat. Now, if we again draw the vertical section of the eye, if we again draw a rough vertical section of the eye, I am not a very good artist. Though I am trying to draw the picture. See, this is the vertical section of the eye. This is the vertical section of the eyeball. Now, what is this? This is the outermost part. This is the outermost opaque part of the eyeball. And what it is called? This outermost opaque part of the eyeball, this is called sclera. And these forms the transparent outermost part of the eyeball. And what it is called? It is called cornea. Now inside the outer layer of the eyeball, inside the outer wall of the eyeball, there is the middle layer. There is a middle layer. This middle layer is called the uveal tract. We will discuss this. This middle layer is called the uveal tract. So this middle layer is called the uveal tract. Now if we see the posterior part of the uveal tract, this posterior part, that is the backside of this uveal tract, this part is called choroid. So this part is called choroid. Now this choroid extends forward and forms the anterior part. First it forms a triangle like region. Which is called ciliary body. These extend forward and forms a triangle like region. This forms the ciliary body, and there is a projection. There is a diaphragm like region, circular diaphragm like region. It further extends forward to form the iris. So this triangle like region is called ciliary body. We will discuss in details about this. And this part is called iris. So this iris, ciliary body and choroid together form, this iris, ciliary body and choroid, these three parts all together form the uveal tract. So iris, ciliary body and choroid forms the uveal tract, and this choroid forms the posterior part of the uveal tract, whereas the ciliary body and iris forms the anterior part of the uveal tract. Hope this is clear to you. Now, this layer that is which is very highly vascularized layer, this is highly vascular layer. This highly vascular layer, that is the middle layer, provides nourishment. The middle layer, I should write it down, the middle layer provides nourishment to the eye. Therefore, this middle layer is called the nutritive coat, as I have discussed earlier. And as choroid is a part of this nutritive layer, this nutritive coat, therefore we can see that choroid is said to form the nutritive coat, because this choroid is a part of the middle layer which forms the nutritive coat, because it is very highly vascular layer. Now, nourishment to the sclera comes from the underlying choroid. This one is sclera. This one is the outermost layer, is called the sclera. Who will give nourishment to the sclera? The nourishment to the sclera comes from the underlying middle layer, that is from the choroid, because this sclera is covered from inside by choroid. This layer, this is the inside of the outermost protective layer. Inside the outermost protective layer, this layer is called choroid. So we can write that nourishment to the sclera comes from underlying choroid. This is the outermost layer. This is the outermost layer which forms the sclera. And this sclera is nourished by the layer which is just inside it, that is the middle layer, which forms the choroid. And choroid extend forwards to form the ciliary body and iris. And this iris, ciliary body and choroid all together forms the uveal tract. So uveal tract is the middle layer of the eyeball. Now, nourishment to sclera comes from the underlying choroid. This choroid is a vascular layer of the eyeball. This choroid is the vascular layer of the eyeball, and it is sandwiched between the outermost and innermost layer. So there is another innermost layer of the eyeball. There is another innermost layer of the eyeball, very important layer. This innermost layer is very important layer, which is the sensory layer. This layer is the sensory layer, and this is called retina. This layer is called retina. So the innermost layer, that is the sensory layer, is called retina, and the choroid is sandwiched between sclera and retina. The choroid is sandwiched between sclera and retina. Retina is the innermost layer, sclera is the outermost layer, while the middle layer, that is the choroid, is sandwiched between the outermost and innermost layer. That is, it is sandwiched between the sclera and retina. I should write it down. Choroid. If anyone asks you what do you mean by choroid? Choroid is the vascular layer. Choroid is the vascular layer of the eyeball. That is sandwiched between sclera and retina. And choroid provides nourishment to both sclera and retina. So choroid provides nourishment to both sclera and retina, and that is why choroid is also called nutritive coat. And this choroid and this choroid, which forms the nutritive coat, is a part of the uveal tract. So uveal tract at the posterior part is known as choroid, while in the anterior part it forms the ciliary body and iris. Hope this is clear to you. Now in ICSE, a question came in ICSE 2011. I should write it down and I should highlight this so that you can remember this. In ICSE 2011, a question came, name the nutritive layer, name the nutritive layer of the eye. Name the nutritive layer of the eye. What will be the answer? In ICSE 2011, a question came, name the nutritive layer of the eye. What will be the answer? The answer will be the choroid. The answer will be the choroid. Because we have seen that choroid provides nourishment to both sclera and retina. So it is called the nutritive coat. So name the nutritive layer of the eye. Choroid is the nutritive layer of the eye. Hope this is clear to you. And this question came in ICSE 2011. In ICSE 2019, another question came. That is, in ICSE 2019, another question came. The question was, name the layer of the eyeball. Name the layer of the eyeball that provides nourishment to the eye. Nourishment to the eye. Similar question. So what was the question? In ICSE 2009, name the layer of the eyeball that provides nourishment to the eye. We have already learned that. What is the name of the layer that provides nourishment to the eye? That is the choroid layer. So the answer will be the choroid or choroid layer. Choroid or choroid layer. Both are correct. Clear? So in ICSE you will find only the question will come for 1 mark only. In ICSE we will see the questions are of 1 mark only. So you don't have to write anything lengthy about it. You don't have to explain anything. Only short questions, only short answers you have to write against each question. So if the concept is clear to you, you can easily write the answers of the questions. And you can write 100, you can attempt 100% of the questions in ICSE if the concept is clear to you. So let us give a revision so that the middle layer should be clear to you. We have seen here the vertical section of the eye. Here we have seen the vertical section of the eye. In this vertical section, the outermost protective layer is called the sclera and cornea. Sclera is the opaque part, and cornea forms the transparent part. And just inside the sclera, the middle layer is highly vascular layer, and this layer is called uveal tract. This layer is called uveal tract, and the posterior part of the uveal tract form the choroid, which is highly vascular, and the anterior part of the uveal tract forms the ciliary body and iris. We'll discuss in details about the ciliary body and iris. Don't worry. Now you have to just remember the names. Don't go into the details of that. And the innermost layer, which is the sensory layer, is called the retina. And this middle layer is sandwiched. This middle layer, that is the choroid, is sandwiched between sclera and retina. And this choroid or the choroid layer provides nourishment to the eye. This choroid layer provides nourishment to both sclera as well as retina. Hope this is clear to you. Now I will be discussing about the ciliary body and the iris. Ciliary body and iris. While discussing about the uveal tract, we have seen that the posterior part of the uveal tract forms the choroid, while the anterior part forms the ciliary body and iris. So now we will be discussing about ciliary body and iris. Before going into that, let us draw the vertical section of the eye again. A rough vertical section of the eye. Detailed diagram we will draw when the entire concept will be clear to us. After the entire concept has been clear to us, then we will draw the final picture of the eyeball. It is just for your understanding. It is a rough vertical section of the eye. It is a rough drawing. Vertical section of the eye. Now, the outermost layer. What was this outermost layer? The opaque outermost part, the protective layer, is called sclera. Now, the outermost transparent part in the front, which allows the light to enter into the eyeball. This part, this transparent layer, outermost protective layer, is called cornea. We have understood this. Now, the middle layer. The middle layer was called uveal tract. The middle layer is called uveal tract. And the posterior part of this uveal tract, this posterior part, the back side of this uveal tract forms the choroid. It is clear to us. And this choroid extend forward to form what is formed? It's form a triangle shaped structure. This forms a triangular area. I have discussed earlier, this forms a triangular area which is called ciliary body. So this is ciliary body. This is ciliary body. Ciliary body. And this ciliary body again extend forwards to form a vascular diaphragm. This extend forward to form a vascular diaphragm, making a central hole. This is the central hole. And this circular diaphragm is this vascular diaphragm, which is circular, is called the iris. This is called iris. So, we can say that choroid extend forward to form a thickened triangular area. Choroid extend forward to form a thickened triangular area, which is called ciliary body. Let me write it down so that you can remember this. Where is the black pen? Here. Choroid extend forward to form a thickened triangular area, which is called ciliary body. This ciliary body controls the shape of the lens. We'll discuss later. This ciliary body is very important because it controls the shape of the lens. Here we'll find lens. Lens is there. We'll discuss later. Here we'll find lens is there. And the shape of this lens is controlled by this ciliary body because it has some muscles. We'll discuss. So, let me write it down. The ciliary body controls the shape of the lens of the eye. This ciliary body includes ring-shaped muscles. There are some ring-shaped muscles that changes the shape of the lens when eye focuses. When eye focuses, the shape of the lens must be changed to focus properly, and this takes place because the ciliary body helps to make the same. So the ciliary body includes the ring-shaped muscles. Ring-shaped muscles that changes the shape of the lens shape of the lens when eye focuses. Is it clear? Now, in the middle of the ciliary body, there is another vascular diaphragm. Making a central hole. And this vascular diaphragm is called the iris. So, let me draw the vertical section of the eye again, a rough vertical section of the eye. Now, what is this outermost wall called? This opaque outermost wall is called the sclera. This outermost opaque wall protective layer is called sclera. Now this opaque sclera continues forward to form the transparent cornea. So these two structures, cornea and sclera, form the outermost wall of the eyeball, outermost protective wall of the eyeball. Why this cornea is transparent? To allow the light to pass through it. Now, this middle layer is called uveal tract. And the posterior part of this middle layer, that is the posterior part of this uveal tract, is called choroid. This choroid extends forward to form a thickened triangular area. And this is called ciliary body. This area is called ciliary body. This ciliary body includes ring-shaped muscles we have discussed. This ciliary body includes ring-shaped muscles that changes the shape of the lens, which is there. Lens is here. This changes the shape of the lens. Why? To have a proper focus. Now, in the middle of the ciliary body, there is another vascular diaphragm. This is another vascular diaphragm in the middle of the ciliary body, making a central hole. So you can see there is a central hole here. Why there is a central hole? Because it allows the light to pass through it so that it can reach the lens and cross the lens accordingly. So the central hole is needed. So in the middle of the ciliary body, there is another vascular diaphragm, and this vascular diaphragm is called iris. So this one is iris. So if we see the eye from the front view, suppose we are seeing the eye from the front view. This is the iris. We are seeing the eye from the front view. This is the iris, which is the colored area. And within the iris, there is a central hole. And this central hole is called pupil. So this central hole, if we see the vertical section of the eye, this central hole is called pupil. Is it clear? This central hole, if we see the eye from the front, this central hole is called pupil, and this colored area is actually the iris. So this is the iris. This is the vertical section. So it looks like this. This is actually the iris, the colored part. And this iris, this colored area is typically brown, blue or green. So we can see the choroid layer extend forwards to form ciliary body. First it forms the ciliary body and then it forms the iris. So let me write it down. In the middle of the ciliary body, in the middle of the ciliary body, there is another vascular vascular diaphragm, making a central hole. Making a central hole. This diaphragm is called iris, and the central hole is called pupil, and the central hole is called pupil. And this pupil allows the light to enter the eyeball and strike the retina. This pupil allows the light to enter the eyeball and strike the retina. This is the retina. This is the innermost layer. This is the innermost wall of the eyeball. This is the innermost layer of the eyeball. And this pupil allows the light to enter through it and strike the retina. I think this is clear to you. Therefore, we can say that the choroid layer extend forward the choroid layer extend forward to form ciliary body and iris. Hope this is clear to us. Now, the iris is the colored area, as I have discussed. The iris is the colored area which have a central hole, and this colored area is typically brown, blue or green. This iris is the colored area. Which has a central hole, which is having a central hole, called pupil. Is it clear? And what is the role of pupil? Pupil allows the light to enter the eyeball. Pupil allows the light to enter the eyeball to strike the retina. So, we have understood the function of the pupil. Pupil allows the light to enter the eyeball to strike the retina. Then what is the function? Of this iris? What is the function of this iris? The iris regulates the amount. This is very important. The iris regulates the amount of light entering. First, let me explain you, then I will write. Otherwise, you cannot understand. The iris regulates the amount of light entering the eyeball by controlling the size of the pupil. So, the size of the pupil, that is the size of the hole, the size of the pupil, that means the size of the hole is controlled by this iris. Why it is controlled? Because it regulates the amount of light to enter. If the size of the pupil is larger, then more light will enter into the retina. If the size of the pupil gets contracted, becomes less, so less light will enter the retina. So the amount of light entering into the retina will be controlled by this iris. So what I have written, the iris regulates the amount of light entering the eyeball, by controlling the size of the pupil. Hope this is clear to you. The function of the iris. The iris regulates the amount of light entering the eyeball by controlling the size of the pupil. Pupil means the central hole. Now, in ICSE 2018, a question came, which layer forms the iris? Which layer forms the iris? We know that the choroid layer extend forward to forms first the ciliary body and then the iris. So the choroid layer extend forward to form the iris, we can say. So when the question came in ICSE 2018, which layer forms the iris, we can write it down. So which layer? The answer will be the choroid layer. Let me write the question with red ink so that you can remember this. In ICSE 2018, the question came, which layer forms the iris? The answer will be choroid layer. The answer will be choroid layer. Let me highlight this so that you can remember. In ICSE 2018, the question came, which layer forms the iris? The answer will be choroid layer. Another question came in ICSE 2013 that state the function. In ICSE 2013, another question came. The state the function of the iris of the eye. State the function of the iris of the eye. This came in ICSE 2013. So we know that what is the function of the iris. We'll write down that the iris, the answer will be the iris regulates the amount of light entering the eyeball by controlling the size of the pupil. The iris controls the size of the pupil, that is the central hole, so that it regulates the amount of light that enters the eyeball and strike the retina. So what will be the answer? The answer of the question, state the function of the iris of the eye. The answer will be the iris regulates the amount of light entering the eyeball by controlling the size of the pupil. So we have already understood the function of the iris. We have already understood the function of the pupil. Now we will understand the function of the ciliary body. We have already discussed about the ciliary body. Then what is the function? What are the functions of the ciliary body? The main function of the ciliary body is to control the shape of the lens. So let me write functions of the ciliary body. Ciliary body. Now, number one, the ciliary body contains the ciliary muscles, as I have discussed earlier. Ciliary muscles. The ciliary body contains ciliary muscles, and these ciliary muscles changes the shape of the lens. These ciliary muscles changes the shape of the lens. Why? When eye focuses on objects at varying distances. So the ciliary body contains ciliary muscles which changes the shape of the lens when the eye focuses on objects at varying distances. Why varying distances? Because some objects are near to the eye, some objects are apart from the eye, some objects are very far from the eye. So the lens, the shape of the lens needs to be modified to have a correct focus, to have a proper focus. And this is done by the ciliary body. The muscles of the ciliary body helps to make the changes in the shape of the lens. So what I've written, the ciliary body contains the ciliary muscles which changes the shape of the lens when the eye focuses on objects at varying distances. This is the most important function of the ciliary body. And another function of the ciliary body is that the ciliary body produces a fluid called aqueous humor. We will learn about aqueous humor. First, let us learn the function of the ciliary body. The ciliary body produces the fluid called aqueous humor. Now, what is aqueous humor? We will discuss very shortly. But why I have write this answer, why I have write the function of the ciliary body with red ink, do you know? Because the question came in ICSE 2015. And what was the question? The question was state the function of the ciliary body. So this question came in ICSE 2015. Hope the answer is clear to you. State the function of the ciliary body. The functions of the ciliary body are: the ciliary body contains the ciliary muscles, which changes the shape of the lens when the eye focuses on objects at varying distances. Number 2, the ciliary body produces the fluid called aqueous humor. So what happens when this lens, the shape of this lens needs to be changed to have a proper image. So the shape of this lens, how it's changed? Because the ciliary muscles present in the ciliary body helps to do that. The ciliary body contains the ciliary muscles, which changes the shape of this lens when eye focuses on an object. When eye focuses on objects at varying distances. Hope this is clear to you. Now I will be discussing about aqueous humor. I think till now one basic concept is clear to us, that is the iris. Iris is the colored circular structure. Iris is colored circular structure. Hope this basic concept is clear to us. This is the circular structure and this is colored. And ciliary body is also circular structure. Ciliary body is also circular structure. So it is not basically a triangle shaped structure because it looks like triangle if we see the vertical section of the eye, but this ciliary body is actually the circular structure. And when we are seeing the iris in the vertical section, what we have seen, it looks like a straight line. It looks like line, but this is not basically line. It is like this. It is like this, where there is a central hole and lens is behind it. This is the iris. This is the iris, and this is iris, and this central hole is called pupil. This is iris. So hope the concept is clear. So iris is the colored circular structure, and ciliary body is also the circular structure. Which controls the shape of the lens to have a proper focus. Hope this is clear to us. Now we will go to aqueous humor. Now we will discuss about aqueous humor. Aqueous humor. What is aqueous humor? Aqueous humor is the transparent watery fluid produced and secreted by the ciliary body. We have discussed here the ciliary body produces aqueous humor. So what is aqueous humor? It is a transparent watery fluid. Aqueous humor is transparent watery fluid. Aqueous humor is transparent watery fluid, and this is produced and secreted by ciliary body. Now this aqueous humor contains low protein concentration. This aqueous humor contains low protein concentration. Now, this aqueous humor is basically present between the cornea and the lens. If we see the structure, if we see the vertical section of the eye, this aqueous humor is present here. This aqueous humor is present in this area, which is in between cornea. This is cornea. We have learned that this transparent outermost layer is called cornea, and this one is lens. So the space in between cornea and lens, this aqueous humor is present. It is secreted by The ciliary body. It is produced and secreted by this ciliary body. Is it clear? And this region is called the anterior chamber. This space is called the anterior chamber. So in the anterior chamber, aqueous humor is present. So aqueous humor is present in between cornea and lens. Hope this is clear to you. Why I have said this? We need to write it down because a question came in ICSE 2018 in the form of fill in the blanks that aqueous humor is present between dash and dash. So what will be the answer? Aqueous humor is present between cornea and lens. Let me write it down. Aqueous humor is present between dash and dash. This came in ICSE 2018. So what will be the answer? The aqueous humor is present between cornea and lens. Let me highlight it first. This came in the form of fill in the blanks of 1 mark only. In ICSE, you will find every question coming from this eye is of 1 mark. Every question coming from this eye is of 1 mark. So, aqueous humor is the transparent watery fluid which is produced and secreted by the ciliary body. It contains low protein concentration, and aqueous humor is present between the cornea and lens and in the space called anterior chamber. We should write it down. In the space called, where I will write, there is no space actually. In a space called anterior chamber. Anterior chamber. So, here I forgot to mark it that the function of the ciliary body came in ICSE 2015. ICSE 2015. State the function of ciliary body. State the function of ciliary body. Hope this is clear to us. So this is important. Let me highlight this also. In ICSE 2014, the question came, state the function of ciliary body. The function will be the ciliary body contains ciliary muscles which changes the shape of the lens when the eye focuses on objects at varying distances. And the second function is the ciliary body produces the fluid called aqueous humor. Oh, I have written this, but I forgot to highlight this. Okay. So aqueous humor is present between the cornea and lens. Hope this is clear to us. Now let us discuss about the function of aqueous humor. Function of aqueous humor. Now, as we know that cornea and lens have no blood supply, the aqueous humor carries nutrient to those structures. So this is a simple function of aqueous humor is since cornea and lens have no blood supply, therefore the aqueous humor carries nutrients to those structures. So the function of aqueous humor is since cornea and lens have no blood supply, the aqueous humor carries nutrients to those structures. So this is all about aqueous humor. We'll not go into the details because in ICSE it is not required. Now I will be discussing an important part of the eye before we go to the innermost layer, before we go to the innermost wall of the eyeball, before we go to the innermost layer of the eyeball, before we go to retina. Retina, we know the innermost layer of the eyeball. So before we go into the retina, we will discuss another important structure of the eyeball, that is conjunctiva. Conjunctiva. Have you heard about conjunctiva? You have learned about conjunctivitis. What is that? Conjunctivitis means inflammation of the conjunctiva. If the conjunctiva get inflamed because of any infection, suppose because of any bacterial infection or viral infection, because of any infection, if the conjunctiva get inflamed, then it is called conjunctivitis. So we will discuss about that structure, conjunctiva. What is conjunctiva? The conjunctiva is a transparent tissue that lines the inside of the eyelids and covers the sclera. What is sclera? That is the white of the eye. So the white of the eye, that is the sclera, is being covered by a transparent membrane, a transparent tissue that is called conjunctiva. Not only the white of the eye, not only the sclera, it also lines the inside of the eyelids. So what I have said, what is conjunctiva? The conjunctiva is a transparent tissue. Conjunctiva is a transparent tissue that lines the inside of the eyelids and covers the sclera. That means sclera means the white of the eye. So, conjunctiva is a transparent tissue that lines the inside of the eyelids and covers the sclera, that is the white of the eye. The conjunctiva is highly vascularized. This conjunctiva is highly vascularized. The conjunctiva is highly vascularized with many microvessels. There are many microvessels. With many microvessels. Conjunctiva covers the entire front part of the eye except the cornea. This is very important. It does not cover cornea. It only covers the sclera. It only covers the sclera. That is, conjunctiva only covers the white of the eye and also lines the inside of the eyelids. But it does not cover the cornea, that is the transparent outermost layer of the eye. It does not cover the transparent outermost layer of the eye. That means it does not cover the cornea. So conjunctiva, let me write it down. Conjunctiva covers the entire front of the eye except the cornea. So when we are seeing the eye from the front, this is the white of the eye, and this white of the eye is being covered by conjunctiva. This white of the eye is being covered by the transparent conjunctiva. But this part over the iris and over the iris and the pupil, this is iris, and this is pupil. This iris and pupil is being covered by a transparent membrane, a transparent layer, which is called cornea. So, So this part is covered by the transparent cornea, and this part is covered by the transparent conjunctiva. Is it clear? This part is covered by the transparent conjunctiva, and this part, what is the red pen? And this part is covered by the transparent cornea. So this is the basic difference between the conjunctiva and cornea. Hope this is clear to you. Now let us understand the function of conjunctiva. What are the functions of conjunctiva? Conjunctiva lies inside the eyelids, as I have told earlier, and provides a covering to the sclera. I have also discussed that. Thus, conjunctiva provides protection to the eye. It also prevents microbacterial entrance into the eye because it is a protective layer. So, let me write the function of the cornea. Let me write the functions of the cornea. Functions of the conjunctiva. Sorry. Let me write the functions of the conjunctiva. Functions of the conjunctiva. Because as I'm not having any notes with me, as I'm not having any books with me, it's very difficult to write in one hand and hold the mobile in another hand and to say, because of this pandemic situation, you have to go for online classes, and this is the only way I can reach you. Okay, what I was saying, the functions of the conjunctiva. Conjunctiva, as we know, lies inside the eyelids and provides a covering to the sclera. Thus provides protection of the eye, or protection to the eye. It also prevents microbial entrance into the eye. So it has a protective role. So conjunctiva has a protective role. Now, another function of conjunctiva is that conjunctiva has goblet cells which produces mucus. Why mucus is necessary? I will discuss that. Very shortly I will be discussing that. First write it down. Conjunctiva has goblet cells which produces mucus. Now, this mucus allows the adhesion of the tear film to the ocular surface. This mucus allows adhesion of the tear film. Tear film. This mucus allows adhesion of the tear film to the ocular surface. Thus provides lubrication of the eye. Lubrication of the eyes. So what we have seen there, here the function is mainly reduction of friction. Here it reduces friction. It lubricates the eye. So conjunctiva has goblet cells which produces mucus, and this mucus allows adhesion of the tear film to the ocular surface, and this provides lubrication of the eyes. So these are the major two functions of the conjunctiva. So hope up to this it is clear to all of us. So now we can move to the next most important part, most important layer of the eyeball, that is the innermost layer, which is called the retina. Now I will be discussing about retina. Basically, I will discuss about the structure of retina. As we have discussed earlier that retina is the innermost layer of the eyeball. So we can write retina is the innermost layer, of the eyeball. It is clear to all of us. Now, this retina is a thin, delicate membrane which lines the back of the eye on the inside of the eyeball. So, if we draw the picture of the eyeball, what we know? This part, what it is called? This is the outermost protective layer. This is the outermost protective layer of the eyeball. This part is the outermost protective layer of the eyeball, and this is called sclera. This part is called sclera. This is the outermost protective layer. Outermost protective layer. And this continues forward. To form a transparent cornea. We have already learned this. So this cornea is also the outermost protective layer. And this cornea is transparent. And this sclera is opaque. So this sclera is opaque and this cornea is transparent. Both sclera and cornea constitute the outermost protective layer of the eyeball. Now, inside the outermost protective layer, there is another middle layer. And this middle layer is called uveal tract. The posterior part of this middle layer, is called choroid. Choroid. This posterior part of the middle layer is called choroid. And this choroid extends forward to form ciliary body. This is the ciliary body. This choroid extends forward to form ciliary body. And this further extends to form iris. So this one is ciliary body. And this one is iris. So these three parts, iris, ciliary body and choroid, together form the uveal tract. And this uveal tract is highly vascular layer. This is the vascular layer. We already have discussed about this. Now, inside this uveal tract, there is the innermost layer. And this innermost layer is called the retina. So this innermost layer is called the retina. And this retina is the photosensitive layer of the eye. This retina is called the photosensitive layer of the eye. Let me draw the picture first. What is this? This is lens. And this central hole is called pupil. Pupil is the central hole. Now, this lens is attached to the ciliary body by means of suspensory ligaments. So these are suspensory ligaments. The shape of the lens is basically controlled by the muscles of the ciliary body called the ciliary muscles. This ciliary body contains muscles, ring-shaped muscles that are called ciliary muscles. And the shape of the lens is controlled by ciliary muscles to have a proper focus. Now, this part contains a fluid called vitreous humor. This part within the retina, this part contains vitreous humor. vitreous, vitreous humor. Is it clear? Now, what is vitreous humor? Vitreous humor is a fluid that occupies the larger cavity of the eyeball behind the lens. So this is the lens. Behind the lens, and within the retina, this is the larger cavity of the eyeball, and this is filled by a fluid called vitreous humor. So let me write it down so that you can remember this. Vitreous humor is a fluid that occupies the larger cavity of the eyeball behind the lens. So what I have written, vitreous humor is the fluid that occupies the larger cavity of the eyeball behind the lens. The main function of this vitreous humor, is to maintain the shape of the eyeball. The main function of the vitreous humor is to maintain the shape of the eyeball. So let me write it down. The main function of the vitreous humor is to maintain the shape of the eyeball. This vitreous humor is a clear and colorless fluid. So this is a transparent fluid that and this fluid is gel-like fluid. This is a gel-like clear transparent fluid. So vitreous humor is transparent gel-like fluid. This vitreous humor is transparent gel-like fluid. And this vitreous humor fills the space between the lens and the retina. We have already discussed that. So it occupies the larger cavity of the eyeball. This vitreous humor occupies the larger cavity of the eyeball. This vitreous humor transmit light to the retina, because through this pupil, through this central hole, light is coming and it strikes the lens and it passes the lens and it reaches the retina through this vitreous humor. So this vitreous humor transmits light to the retina. But the main function of vitreous humor is to maintain the shape of the eyeball. Hope this is clear now. Now, we were discussing about retina. This retina is the photosensitive layer. This retina is the photosensitive layer of the eye. Let me write it down. Retina is the photosensitive layer of the eyeball. Retina is the photosensitive layer of the eyeball. And this retina is present between vitreous humor and choroid. This retina is present between vitreous humor and choroid. So this retina is sandwiched between vitreous humor in the inside and choroid on the outside. Hope this is clear now. Now, this retina is a thin, delicate membrane. Retina is a thin, delicate membrane. Which lines the back of the eye, on the inside. What does it mean? Retina is a thin, delicate membrane that lines the back of the eye, that lines in the back side of the eye, that lines in the back of the eye, on the inside of the eyeball. And this retina is on the inside of the eyeball. So, we have understood what is retina. Now, we will discuss about the different layers of retina. Retina has basically two layers. Retina has basically two layers. Now, what are the two layers? The outermost part is the pigmented epithelium. So if we see the retina, what we will see? Let us see the picture again. This retina is composed of two parts. One is the outermost part, which is the pigmented epithelium, and one is the innermost layer. So if we see, let me draw the picture again. This is the outermost sclera. This is the outermost sclera. This is choroid, and this is retina. Now, if we see this part, if we see a part of the retina, what we will see? We will see, let us see this part. Let us take a cross section from this part, and this is the sclera. So this is the outermost part. This is sclera. Now inside the sclera, this is the middle layer, choroid. So this is choroid. And this is retina. So this part is retina. And if we see further, here is vitreous humor. So this part contains vitreous humor. This is retina. If we see retina, we will see that it has basically two layers. The retina is having two layers. This is a pigmented layer. This is a pigmented layer of the retina. The outermost part, this outermost part is the pigmented epithelium, and this contains heavily pigmented cells. So this is the pigment layer of the retina. Pigment layer of retina. And inside this, the innermost layer of the retina is called the neural layer or neuronal layer. So this is the neural or neuronal layer of retina. Hope this is clear to you. So retina has basically two layers. The outermost layer, the outermost part is the pigmented epithelium. It contains heavily pigmented cells. And this layer is called the pigment layer of the retina. This is also called retinal pigmented epithelium. This is also called retinal pigmented epithelium. And inside this retinal pigmented epithelium, or inside the pigment layer of the retina, there is another layer. This innermost layer of the retina is called the neural layer or the neuronal layer of retina. Hope this is clear to you. Now let me write it down so that you can remember this. Retina has basically two layers. Now what are the two layers? Number one, the outermost part is the pigmented epithelium. It contains heavily pigmented cells, as I have discussed. It contains heavily pigmented cells. This layer is called pigment layer of the retina, or the pigment layer of the retina, or retinal pigmented epithelium. Now, the innermost layer, the innermost layer of the retina, the innermost layer of the retina is called the neural layer of the retina. Now, what I have said, retina is composed of two layers. One is the outermost pigment layer and another is the innermost neural layer or neuronal layer of the retina. Now, the neuronal layer of the retina or the neural layer of the retina contains photosensitive cells. Now, what are those photosensitive cells? They are rod cells and cone cells. These rod cells and cone cells are the image forming cells. So, let me write it down. The neuronal layer or the neural layer of the retina contains photosensitive cells. Photosensitive cells, or we can say it as photoreceptive cells. Anything you can say. The neuronal layer of retina contains photosensitive cells called rod cells and cone cells. So these rod cells and cone cells are basically image forming cells. Image forming cells. We will also see later that retina also contains photosensitive cells which are non-image forming. Now we will not discuss about that. What I have said, the neuronal layer of retina contains photosensitive cells called rod cells and cone cells. This is clear? Now, these rod cells are responsible for vision at low light levels. So, rod cells are responsible for vision at low light levels. So they are very much sensitive to light. At low light, during the night time, these rod cells are responsible for vision. But they do not mediate color vision. Though these rod cells are very much sensitive to light and they are responsible for vision at low light levels, but they do not mediate color vision. This is very important. Whereas the cone cells are not so much sensitive. These cone cells are active only at brighter light levels. But they are capable of color vision. That is why we can see colors during daytime. Whereas cone cells are active at brighter light. Cone cells are active at brighter light levels and are capable of color vision. So hope this concept is clear to you. So the two types of image forming cells which are present in the neuronal layer of the retina are rod cells and cone cells. The rod cells are responsible for vision at low light levels, but these rod cells do not mediate color vision. Whereas cone cells are active only at brighter light levels and are capable of color vision. This is the basic difference between rod cells and cone cells. Now, rod cells and cone cells, these rod cells or cone cells are basically transducers. Now, what do we mean by transducers? What I have said, first let me write it down. These rod cells and cone cells are basically transducers. Now, what do we mean by transducers? Here we have come across a terminology which is new to us. Transducers. So, what do we mean by transducers? Transducers are those which converts one type of energy into another. Which converts one type of energy into another. Let me write it down so that you should not forget this. This will not come into an examination, what are transducers, but for the sake of your knowledge, I am writing this. Transducers are those which converts one type of energy into another type of energy. So the concept of transducers is clear to us. Now, how these rod cells and cone cells are transducers? Why we are calling these rod cells and cone cells as transducers? Let me clear this first. Now, we know that light energy is a form of electromagnetic energy. Light energy is a form of electromagnetic energy, is electromagnetic energy. Light energy is a form of electromagnetic energy. Light energy is electromagnetic energy. Now, this neural layer of retina converts electromagnetic energy into electrochemical energy. So, who are responsible? Which cells are responsible for this conversion? For this conversion, only rod cells and cone cells are responsible. That means rod cells and cone cells converts electromagnetic energy into electrochemical energy and send these signals to the brain along the optic nerves. So here what we have seen? Here we have seen there are optic nerves. What are these? These are basically optic nerves. These are the optic nerves. And what is the function of these optic nerves? They carry the visual stimuli from retina to brain. Optic nerves carries, rather I will write. Optic nerves carries the visual stimuli from retina to the brain. One number question may come from here. What is the function of optic nerve? The optic nerve carries the visual stimuli from retina to the brain. Now, what I have said, light energy is electromagnetic energy, and rod cells and cone cells present in the neuronal layer of the retina. What does they do? They converts these electromagnetic energy into electrochemical energy. Rod cells and cone cells convert electromagnetic energy, that is light, into electrochemical energy. And send these signals to the brain along the optic nerves for visual perception. What I have said, light energy is electromagnetic energy, and rod cells and cone cells present in the neuronal layer of the retina convert electromagnetic energy, that is light, into electrochemical energy and send these signals to the brain along the optic nerves for visual perception. As these rod cells and cone cells converts one form of energy to another form, that is, as rod cells and cone cells convert electromagnetic energy to electrochemical energy, so they are considered as transducers. Therefore, we can rightly say that rod cells and cone cells are basically transducers. Hope this is clear to all of us. Now, the pigment layer of the retina what I've said, the pigment layer or the pigment layer of the retina or the retinal pigmented epithelium, that is the outermost layer of the retina, does not contain rod cells and cone cells. The outermost layer of the retina, that is the pigment layer of the retina, does not contain rod cells and cone cells. They actually functions to absorb the light. Thus prevents any reflection within the eyeball. Light is coming through here. There must not be any reflection. To prevent that reflection, these pigment layer absorb the light to prevent any reflection within the eyeball. So let me write it down. The pigment layer of retina or the retinal pigmented epithelium, or what we can say, retinal pigmented epithelium, which contains heavily pigmented cells. This pigment layer of retina does not contain rod cells and cone cells. That means this pigment layer of retina does not contain any image forming cells, but they means the pigment layer of the retina, they functions to absorb the light, thus prevents any reflection within the eyeball, any reflection of light within the eyeball. When light reaches the retina, they first fall into the neural layer. When light reaches the retina, they first fall into the neural layer. And here in the neural layer, the rod cells and cone cells act as transducers, and then the light get absorbed into the pigment layer. So if this is the retina, it has two layers. The outermost layer is the pigment layer, which absorbs the light, and the inner layer is the neural layer. So when light reaches the eyeball, it first strikes the neural layer, and in the neural layer, the rod cells and cone cells act as transducers. They convert one form of the energy to another to convey the signal into the brain through the optic nerves. But the pigment layer absorb this light so that there must not be any reflection of light within the eyeball. The light which reaches the retina, it must not get reflected within the eyeball. This is the main function of the pigment layer of the retina. So let me write it down. When light reaches the retina, they first fall into the neural layer. Or the neuronal layer of retina. Neuronal layer of retina. And here, rod cells and cone cells act as transducers. Rod cells and cone cells acts as transducers because they convert the electromagnetic energy into electrochemical energy. As they convert electromagnetic energy, that is light, into electrochemical energy, and then the light gets absorbed into the pigment layer of the retina, which is also called retinal pigmented epithelium. Retinal pigmented epithelium. So hope this is clear to you. So retina is having two layers. One is the innermost neural or neuronal layer of the retina, and another is the outermost pigment layer of the retina or retinal pigmented epithelium. So when light reaches the eyeball, it first falls into the neural or neuronal layer of the retina, where rod cells and cone cells are present, and these rod cells and cone cells gets activated and acts as transducers. Why they are transducers? Because they convert the electromagnetic energy, that is light, into electrochemical energy, and then they passes the signal, they passes the stimuli from the retina to the brain by means of optic nerves, and then the light gets absorbed into the next layer, that is the outermost layer of the retina, which is the pigment layer of the retina or the retinal pigmented epithelium. Why it is gets absorbed? Because there must not be any reflection within the eyeball. Hope this is clear to all of us. While showing the vertical section of the eye, I have forgot to discuss one thing, one question rather I will say, which came in ICSE 2016. This is the vertical section of the eye. This is the vertical section of the eye, which we have discussed today. But while discussing about this, I have said that iris. I have said about iris. This iris, ciliary body, and choroid forms the uveal tract. Now, in ICSE 2016, one question came that state the exact location of ciliary body. This one. This is the ciliary body. This is the ciliary body. The question came in ICSE 2016. State the exact location of the ciliary body. What would be the answer? Ciliary body is located at the junction of the choroid and iris. It is a simple answer because it is placed in between choroid and iris. As we know that uveal tract consists of three structures: iris and ciliary body in the anterior part and choroid at the posterior part. What I have said? Iris and ciliary body form the anterior part of the uveal tract, whereas choroid forms the posterior part of the uveal tract. So here we can see that ciliary body is present in between iris and choroid. So when the question came, state the exact location of the ciliary body, we should write ciliary body is located at the junction. Ciliary body is located at the junction of choroid and iris. Let me write the answer. Ciliary body is located at the junction of choroid and iris. Actually, choroid extend forwards to form ciliary body and iris. Actually, choroid extend forward to form ciliary body and iris. Is it clear to all of us? Should I write it down? Actually, choroid, here is no space to write. I'm given an asterisk here and writing here. Actually, choroid, that is the posterior part of the uveal tract, extend forward to form the anterior part of the uveal tract, that is ciliary body ciliary body and iris. So this is an important question of 1 mark. State the exact location of ciliary body, which came in ICSE 2016. Let me highlight this so that you can easily remember the question. Very important question which came in ICSE 2016. Another question, very important. I should discuss, I must discuss while I am discussing, during discussing the retina. The question was, which came in ICSE 2012. The question came in ICSE 2012. What was the question? The question was, name the part of the human eye where rod cells and cone cells are located. Very easy question. Name the, let me write it down. Name the part of the human eye where rods and cones, where rod cells and cone cells are located. Where rod cells and cone cells are located. Rod cells are also known as rods, cone cells are also known as cones. It is a 1 mark question. Name the part of the human eye where rod cells and cone cells are located. What will be the answer? It is very easy. It is retina. The part of the eye where rod cells and cone cells are located is retina. You must not say in which layer of retina. It is not required for ICSE actually. You can say, if you wish you can say, but it is not needed. If you want to write it down, you can write it down that in the neural layer or in the neuronal layer of the retina, these rod cells and cone cells are present. As we have learned that there is no rod cells and cone cells in the pigment layer of retina. So to be more specific, you can write it down that in the neural layer, or in the neuronal layer, or neuronal layer of the retina, rod cells or rods and cone cells or cones are present or located. But you can give a simple answer to that in the retina of the human eye, rod cells and cone cells are located. That is also equally correct. Now, let me draw the vertical section of the eye again. So this is the vertical section of the eye. What is this part called? This is the outermost protective wall. This is the outermost protective layer, which is called sclera. And this sclera is opaque. The front part, which is transparent, the outermost protective layer, this forms the cornea. This is transparent. Now, the middle layer or the middle wall, this is called uveal tract, and the posterior part of the uveal tract is called choroid, and anteriorly it forms ciliary body and iris. You have already discussed this. So this is the ciliary body, which contains ciliary muscles, and this is iris. This central hole is called pupil, from where light enters the eyeball. This is the central hole. As cornea is transparent, so light can easily enter through the cornea, and it goes through the pupil, that is the central hole, and reaches the retina, that is the innermost layer of the eyeball. This cavity contains a fluid which is called vitreous humor. Now, while discussing regarding retina, what I have said, retina is composed of two parts. Retina is composed of two parts. Now, from here the optic nerve emerges. This is optic nerve. What is the function of the optic nerves? Optic nerves carries visual stimuli from retina to the brain. You need to remember this because question may come. Optic nerve carries visual stimuli from retina to brain. Now, this is retina. This is retina. This part of the retina is called pigment part of the retina. This part of the retina is called pigment part of the retina, which do not contain any rods or cone cells. But the interior part of the retina, which is called neuronal part or the neural part, this neuronal part of the retina contains the photosensitive cells, that is the rod cells and cone cells. And this part contains the rod cells and cone cells. Now, this point from where the optic nerve exits the eyeball, this is called the optic disc. This part is called the optic disc. So this is optic disc. And here there is no rod cells and cone cells present in the retina. So here no rod cells and cone cells are present. So this is called blind spot. So let me write it down. Optic disc. Optic disc. What is that? Optic disc is the point from where optic nerve exits the eyeball, and no rod cells and cone cells are present in the optic disc. So it resembles a blind spot. Because there are no photosensitive cells. There are no image forming photosensitive cells like rod cells and cone cells. Now, the point. Now it is very important. You should understand that the point, there is some point which is called ora serrata. This point is called ora serrata, where the light sensitive part of the retina gets terminated. This light sensitive part of the retina means rod cells and cone cells gets terminated here, and this point is called ora serrata. But this part, that is the pigmented epithelium, continues interiorly. The pigmented epithelium continues interiorly over the ciliary body. This retinal pigmented epithelium continues interiorly over the ciliary body and over the iris. But these cone cells and rod cells are not continuing. But it is not only the retinal pigmented epithelium. Some part of this neural layer also continues behind the ciliary body and the iris. Some part of the retinal neuronal layer also continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris, but they does not contain the rod cells and cone cells. Is it clear? I should repeat this. This red part is the pigment layer of the retina. This pigment layer of the retina continues over the ciliary body and iris interiorly. This pigment part of the retina continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. But some part of the neural layer, some part of the neural layer, that is the some part of the what it is called? It is called the some part of the neural layer also continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris, but the part which contains over the ciliary body and iris does not contain the rods and cones. The neural layer or the neuronal layer of the retina, the rods and cones terminate abruptly at a point which is called ora serrata. Hope this is clear. So now let me write about ora serrata. Ora serrata. What is ora serrata? Ora serrata is the point where the light sensitive part of the retina terminates. It is the point on the neuronal layer of the retina where the light sensitive part gets terminated. What does it mean? That means this is the light sensitive part of the retina, and at this point where the light sensitive part of the retina, that is the light sensitive part of the neuronal layer of the retina, gets terminated, this point is called ora serrata. And after this, even though the neuronal layer continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris, there is no rods and cones. There are no, even though the light sensitive even though the neuronal layer of the retina continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris, but there is no rods and cones. That means after this ora serrata, it is the non-photosensitive region. It is the non-photosensitive area. So here within the neuronal layer of the retina, there are rods and cones. So this is the photosensitive area of the retina. And at this point where the photosensitive area of the neuronal layer gets terminated, this point is called ora serrata. And after this, though the neuronal layer is moving over the ciliary body and iris interiorly, but it is the non-photosensitive part, because this does not contain any rod cells or cone cells. So hope the concept of ora serrata is clear. However, this part, that is the pigment layer of the retina, it also continues over the ciliary body and iris. It also continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. This part, this pigment layer of the retina also continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. So what I have said, not only the pigment part of the retina continues interiorly over the ciliary and iris, it is also the neuronal part of the retina which continues over the ciliary body and iris. But after the ora serrata, this part of the neuronal layer which continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris is absolutely non-photosensitive. So before the point of ora serrata, posteriorly this part of the retina is photosensitive because this point contains rods and cones. Hope this is clear. Now I should write it down. The retinal pigmented epithelium continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. What I have said, the retinal pigmented epithelium continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. And not only retinal pigmented epithelium, some part of neuronal layer of the retina, some part of the neuronal layer of the retina also continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris, but the part over ciliary body and iris does not contain rods and cones. What I have said, though some part of the neuronal layer of the retina continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris, but that part does not contain rods and cones, that is rod cells and cone cells. So that is the non-photosensitive area. That means it is the non-photosensitive area. Now, later we will be discussing in details that the rod cells contain a pigment called rhodopsin, whereas the cone cells contain a pigment called iodopsin. Just I am giving a brief introduction of that. Rod cells, the pigment of rod cells are called rhodopsin, and the pigment of cone cells are called iodopsin. We will discuss about these two things in details later. But up to this, what I have said, I think it is clear to all of us. Now we know that rod cells gets activated in the dark. Rod cells gets activated in the dark. That is, during the night time we see the rod cells gets activated. Whereas the cone cells gets activated in light. So the cone cells gets activated in the light. So we can see that during the daytime this cone cells gets activated. Now a question came in ICSE 2011. It is very important. Name the cells of the retina and their respective pigments which gets activated, number A, in the dark, and number B, in the light. Let me write the question. You should note it down. Name the cells of the retina. And their respective pigments which gets activated, number A, in the dark, and number B, in light. This question came in ICSE 2011. If you see all the questions of ICSE examination, you will see those are the basic questions. If you can develop your concept, if you can develop your scientific knowledge, you can easily write the answers. So name the cells of the retina that and their respective pigments that get activated in the dark and in the light. So which cells gets activated in the dark? Which cells gets cells which gets activated in the dark. What are the cells which gets activated in the dark? We have already known that. That is rod cells. That is rod cells. And what are the cells that gets activated in the light? Cells that gets activated in the light are called cone cells. Now, what has been asked in the question? We have to give the names of the we have to give the names of the pigments. So what is the pigment of rod cells called? The respective pigment is rhodopsin. The respective pigment of the rod cell is rhodopsin, whereas the respective pigment of the cone cell is iodopsin. So, in the question, it has been asked that we have to name the cell which gets activated in the dark and what pigment does it contain. For number A, the answer will be cells which gets activated in the dark are rod cells and its respective pigment is rhodopsin. In question number B, it has been asked name the cells that gets activated in the light. We have to name the cells which gets activated in the light, and also we have to name the pigment of that cells. So the cells which activated, this is number B, the cells which gets activated in the light are cone cells and the respective pigment of the cone cells are called iodopsin. So this is very easy to answer. Let me draw the vertical section of the eye again. So this is the rough vertical section of the eye. Vertical section of the eye. Now, what is this? We have discussed earlier. This is the outermost protective layer of the eyeball. This is the outermost protective layer of the eyeball. What it is called? It is called sclera. This is sclera and this is opaque. Now, this sclera continues forward to form a transparent part, and this transparent part is called cornea. Cornea. This is transparent. Now, through this cornea, light enters the eyeball because this is transparent. This cornea, both this cornea and sclera forms the outermost wall or outermost covering of the eyeball. Now, within this sclera, there is a middle layer, a highly vascularized middle layer, and this is called uveal tract. This layer is called uveal tract. Now, the posterior part, that is the backside of the uveal tract, is called choroid. Choroid. That is the posterior part. Posterior part of the uveal tract is called choroid. And this uveal tract extends anteriorly to form the ciliary body. And it extends further to form the iris. So this one is the ciliary body. And this one is the iris. So ciliary body and iris and ciliary body forms the anterior part. Anterior part of the uveal tract. So these three, that is iris, ciliary body and choroid, these three forms the uveal tract. Uveal tract. We have already understood this in our previous classes. Now, the innermost layer of the eyeball is called the retina. The most important part, the most delicate part of the eyeball is the middle part. That is the innermost wall, innermost part, that is called retina. So this is retina. We have discussed earlier that retina is made up of two layers. One is the pigment layer. that is the outermost part of the retina, the outermost layer of the retina is called the pigment layer. And the innermost part or the innermost layer of the retina is called the neuronal layer. Now, the rods and cones, that is the photosensitive cells, the rods and cones are present only in the neuronal layer. They are not present in the pigment layer of the retina. Rods and cones, that is the photosensitive cells, which are called rod cells and cone cells, are present only in the neuronal layer or neural layer of the retina. Now, this layer of the retina, that is the outer layer of the retina, that is the pigment layer of the retina, continues forward and it continues interiorly over the ciliary body and the iris. The pigment layer of the retina continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. Not only the pigment layer, the neuronal layer of the retina also continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. Clear? This is the neuronal, this is the pigment layer which continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris, and then the neuronal layer also continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. But here is the point where all the rod cells and cone cells terminates. So the point at which all the light sensitive part gets terminated, that is the rod cells and cone cells gets terminated, is called ora serrata. Clear? So this point is ora serrata and this point is ora serrata. So beyond ora serrata, in the front, the part of the retina is non-photosensitive area. So this part of the retina is non-photosensitive area. But the posterior part of the retina is the photosensitive area because it contains rods and cones. Hope this is clear to all of us now. Now, at some part of the retina, we will find the optic nerves coming from the retina emerge. At some point of the retina, we will find the neuronal fibers coming from the retina emerges. The neuronal fibers coming from the retina emerges, and this part of the retina is called optic disc. So this is the optic disc. This part is called optic disc. So what is optic disc? Optic disc is the point from where optic nerve exits. So optic disc, let me write it down. Optic disc is the point from where optic nerves emerges from the eyeball. The optic, actually what happens, the neuronal fibers coming from the retina, the neuronal fibers coming from the retina comes here at the optic disc. That is the head of the optic nerves. This optic disc is considered as the head of the optic nerves. Optic disc is considered as the head of the optic nerves. But here we will find another structure. What is this? Actually, what happens? The nerve bundles are passing through here only to exit the eyeball, and this area is highly perforated. And what happens? It pierces the sclera. This area is highly perforated and this pierces the sclera. Perforated means there are holes, and it pierces the sclera from which the optic nerves emerges. This area of the sclera is called lamina cribrosa. This area is called lamina cribrosa. So what happens? From the retina, neuronal fibers are coming. From the retina, the neuronal fibers are coming, and they exits the retina. They exits the retina towards the lamina cribrosa, and this point on the retina is called optic disc. So the optic disc is the point from where the optic nerves exits, and in this optic disc there are no rod cells and cone cells. In the optic disc there are no rod cells and cone cells, and therefore this optic disc is called the blind spot, because there are no photosensitive cells like rod cells and cone cells. And from these, the neuronal fibers of the retina comes here, and here is a porous structure on the sclera from which the optic nerve fibers passes, and this structure is called lamina cribrosa. This structure is called lamina cribrosa. Hope this is clear to all of us, this porous structure. Now, what is ora serrata? I have discussed. This point is called ora serrata. Ora serrata is the point on the neuronal layer. Ora serrata is the point on the neuronal layer of the retina where the light sensitive part gets terminated. That means where the rod cells and cone cells, presence of the rod cells and cone cells gets terminated. It's abruptly terminated here at the point called ora serrata. And if we go further, anteriorly, further front of ora serrata, we will find the non-photosensitive area of the retina. And beyond the ora serrata, it is the photosensitive area of the retina. But at the optic disc, there are no rod cells and cone cells. So optic disc is considered as the blind spot. Now, let us see the eyeball from the front. Suppose this is the beautiful nose. I am not a very good painter. These are the eyes. Now let us see the eyeball from the front. What we will see? Suppose this is the right side of the body. This is the right side of the body, and this is the left side of the body. So this is the right eye and this is the left eye. Let me consider about the eyeball. Now, in the center of the eyeball, suppose this is the eyeball which is placed within the socket of the orbit. This is the eyeball. If we see the center of the eyeball, or rather I can say if we see the center of the retina, central area of the retina, we will find a yellowish area. In the center of the retina, suppose this is the retina, and we'll at the center of the retina we'll find a yellow spot. This is called macula. This point is called macula. This point is called macula. Now, what is macula? The macula is the central area of the retina. So macula is the central area of the retina. And what is the color of macula? It is yellowish in color. Yellowish in color. This macula is predominantly made up of cone cells. This macula is predominantly made up of cone cells, which provides the color vision. We have already learned that cone cells provide the color vision. So let me write it down. Macula is predominantly made up of cone cells which provide color vision. Now, this macula is the central part of the retina, central area of the retina. Now, at the center of the macula, there is another part called fovea. So, let me turn the page. Let me write in a new page. The center of the macula is called fovea. Now, what we have seen in macula? Macula has very high concentration of photoreceptor cells. Macula has very high concentration of photoreceptor cells, and that too are predominantly made up of cone cells. Now, at the center, if this is the macula, at the center of the macula, this part is called fovea. This center provides the most accurate and sharp vision. That means fovea provides the most accurate and sharp vision. So fovea, this center provides PROVIDES, provides most accurate and sharp vision. And this part, fovea, that is the center of the macula, is populated exclusively by cones. Macula is populated exclusively by cones, that is cone cells, and therefore they give an exact color vision, which are responsible for color vision. They give exact color vision. Hope this is clear. Now there is another. So if we see the retina from the front, suppose these are the retina. This one is the right retina and this one is the left retina. This is right retina and this is left retina. What do we see in the center? We will see the center of the retina, which is called macula. So this is macula. This part is called macula, which is yellowish in color. Which is yellowish in color. And this macula contains photoreceptor cells, and that's too predominantly made up of cone cells. These are predominantly made up of cone cells. Now, here we will find actually the optic disc. Here we will find the optic disc. This is the nose. This is mouth. Here we will find the optic disc. So these are the optic disc. These are the optic disc. These are the optic disc, and from this optic disc the optic nerves exits the eyeball, and in this optic disc, in this part of the retina, that is in the optic disc, there are no rod cells and cone cells. So this optic disc, this part is called blind spot. So the optic disc are called blind spot because there are no rod cells and cone cells present here. But macula has very high concentration of photoreceptor cells, and that too predominantly cone cells. The optic disc has no rod cells and cone cells, so it is called blind spot, whereas macula has very high concentration of photoreceptor cells, and that's too predominantly made up of cone cells, which give the color vision. Hope this is clear to all of us. Now, if it is asked to you that give any three differences between macula and optic disc, what you will say? The basic differences between macula and optic disc. First and foremost thing is that macula is located centrally. Here you can see from the picture that macula is located centrally within the retina. But whether you think that this optic disc is located centrally? No. Optic discs are not located centrally. Optic discs are not located centrally within the retina, but macula are located centrally within the retina. This is the first and foremost difference. Second difference, this macula is yellowish in color. This macula is yellowish in color, whereas optic discs are pale in color. Optic discs are pale, macula are yellowish. So optic disc are pale. And the major difference between macula and optic disc are, in macula there is very high concentration of photoreceptor cells. In macula there are very high concentration of photoreceptor cells, and that too predominantly cones. Thus they give the exact color vision. Thus they give the perfect color vision, macula. But whether the optic disc give any color vision, whether this optic disc can give any vision? No, they cannot give any vision, because there are no rod cells and cone cells present in the optic disc, and therefore optic disc are considered as blind spot. So what are the three differences? One, macula is present centrally within the retina, whereas optic disc are not present centrally in the retina. Number two, macula are yellowish in color, whereas optic disc are pale in color. And number three, macula have very high concentration of photoreceptor cells, which are predominantly cones, whereas optic disc contains no rod cells and cone cells, and hence they are considered as blind spots of the retina. Hope this is clear to all of us. The basic differences, these three are the basic differences between the macula and optic disc. In ICSE, you don't have to write very much. You don't have to write long answers. Only 1-2 marks question are coming. The questions which are coming in ICSE comprises of only 1 or 2 marks. You have to write very short answers. So what is fovea? Fovea is the center of the macula, and this fovea provides the most accurate and sharp vision, and this fovea is populated exclusively by cones. This fovea is populated exclusively by cones, because we have what we have seen. This is the enlarged view of the macula. This is retina. If this is retina, the center of the retina is called macula, and the center of the macula is called fovea. So as macula has very high concentration of photoreceptor cells, and that too predominantly cone cells, the center of the macula, that is fovea, is populated exclusively by cones. This center of the macula, which is called fovea, is populated exclusively by cones, and thus it provides the exact color vision. This provides the most accurate and sharp vision. This fovea provides the most accurate and sharp vision. So if it is asked to you to write about the differences between rod cells and cone cells, what will be the differences? Rod cells and cone cells. The basic difference between rod cells and cone cells are, rod cells gets activated in the dark. Rod cells, number one, rod cells gets activated in the dark. So they are responsible for night vision or low light vision. Whereas cone cells gets activated in the light. Cone cells gets activated in the light. Therefore they provide light vision or daylight vision. Therefore they provide daylight vision, or they provide vision in a high intensity of light. These cone cells are responsible for color vision. These cone cells are responsible for color vision. Responsible for color vision. Whereas the rod cells are not responsible for color vision. What will be the third difference between rod cells and cone cells? The pigment of the rod cell are called rhodopsin, which is visual purple pigment. So the pigment of rod cells are visual purple pigment called rhodopsin. Whereas the pigment of the cone cells are visual violet. They are visual violet pigment, and what it is called? Which is called iodopsin. Called iodopsin. So these three are the basic differences between rod cells and cone cells. You don't have to write very much about rod cells and cone cells, because in ICSE I am repeatedly saying short questions are coming. You have to write only one difference or two differences, not more than that. I have given you three differences. The three differences between rod cells and cone cells are: rod cells gets activated in the dark and therefore they are responsible for night vision or low light vision, whereas cone cells gets activated in the light. Therefore, they are responsible for the visions under bright light or daylight vision. Now, rod cells are not responsible for color vision. Rod cells are not responsible for color vision, whereas cone cells are responsible for color vision. Cone cells are responsible for color vision. And the third difference is the pigment of the rod cells are called rhodopsin. And how is this pigment? These are visual purple pigment. So rod cells contains visual purple pigment called rhodopsin, whereas the pigment of the cone cells are called iodopsin. The cone cells contain the visual violet pigment which are called iodopsin. So these three are the basic differences between rod cells and cone cells. And this question came in ICSE 2016. This question came in ICSE 2016. What was the question? The question was differentiate between rod cells and cone cells, and in the bracket they have mentioned pigment. So you have to differentiate on the basis of pigment. So rod cell contains the visual purple pigment called rhodopsin, whereas the cone cell contains the visual violet pigment called iodopsin. You have to write only this part of the difference, because it has been clearly mentioned that you have to differentiate based on the pigment. So in ICSE 2016, the question came as differentiate. I should write it down so that you can remember. Differentiate between rod cells and cone cells based on pigment. So ICSE examination is very easy. Just you have to develop the concept. You don't have to mug up anything. You have to develop the concept, and every questions are very short answer type question. You can easily write all the questions. You can give 100% answers to the questions in ICSE if the concept is crystal clear to you. Let us have a small revision. Let me draw the vertical section of the eye. So now we are drawing the vertical section of the eye. So what is this outermost protective layer called? This outermost protective layer, which is opaque and which is hard, this outermost protective layer is called sclera. And this sclera is opaque. Now, this part, this outermost part, which is transparent, this is called cornea. So this part is called cornea, and this is transparent. Why it is transparent? Because this allows the light to pass through it to enter the eyeball. So the outermost layer of the eyeball consists of two parts. One is sclera, that is opaque part, and another is cornea, which is transparent part. Now there is a middle layer inside the outermost covering, and this middle layer is highly vascularized, and this vascularized middle layer is called ovial tract. Now the posterior part, that is the back side of this ovial tract, is called choroid. So this part is called choroid, and this choroid extend forwards to form ciliary body and then iris. These choroid extend forward to form ciliary body and iris. So this region is called ciliary body. Ciliary body, and this is called iris. So we can say that the posterior part of the ovial tract forms the choroid, while the anterior part forms the ciliary body and iris. So iris, ciliary body and choroid, all these three together constitute the uveal tract. Uveal tract. We have already learned this. So if someone asks you that name the layer of the retina or name the wall of the retina which extend forward to form the ciliary body and iris, what we will say? You will say that the part of the retina or the layer of the retina or the wall of the retina which extend forward to form the ciliary body and iris is called choroid. Because choroid extend forwards to form the ciliary body and iris. And all these three together forms the uveal tract. So the posterior part of the uveal tract is called choroid, while the anterior part of the uveal tract forms the ciliary body and iris. Now, we were discussing about retina. The innermost layer of the eyeball is the retina. The innermost layer of the eyeball is the retina. Now, we have already learned that retina has two basic parts. Retina has two basic parts. This part which is formed by the epithelial cells is the pigmented part, and this is called pigment layer of the retina, which is adjacent to the choroid. The part of the retina which is adjacent to the choroid is the pigment layer. Which I am drawing with red ink. This is pigment layer. In this pigment layer, where the retinal pigmented epithelium is present, there are no photosensitive cells like rod cells and cone cells. But the innermost layer of the retina, which I am drawing with the black color, this innermost layer of the retina is called the neural layer or the neuronal layer of the retina. And this innermost layer of the retina contains the photosensitive cells like rod cells and cone cells. We have already discussed that. And this space contains the fluid called vitreous humor. Vitreous humor. So this is the retina. Now, where I have said the photosensitive cells like rod cells and cone cells are present, they are present on the neural layer or neuronal layer of the retina, which is adjacent to the vitreous humor. This neural layer or neuronal layer is adjacent to the vitreous humor, whereas the pigment layer, that is the retinal pigmented epithelium, is adjacent to the middle layer of the retina, that is, it is adjacent to the choroid. Hope this is clear to all of us. Now, this pigment layer continues forward, and it continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. This pigment layer continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. At the same time, this neural layer or the neuronal layer of the retina also continues interiorly over the ciliary body and iris. This neuronal layer also continues over the ciliary body and iris. But there is a point on the retina. Where all the photosensitive cells, that is the rod cells and cone cells, gets terminated. And this point is called ora serrata. So this point is called ora serrata. Beyond this ora serrata, there are no rod cells and cone cells. So beyond the ora serrata, in the front of the eye, this part is the non-photosensitive area of the eyeball, of the retina. This is the non-photosensitive area of the retina. But on the posterior side, here, this part is called the photosensitive area of the retina. But there is a point where the optic disc is present. There is a point on the retina where optic disc is present. Here, there is no rod cells and cone cells present. In the retina, rod cells and cone cells are present. After ora serrata, in the front, where the retina extends further forward, after ora serrata, there are no rod cells and cone cells. So that region is non-photosensitive region. But within the ora serrata, we will find rod cells and cone cells present. So they are the photosensitive area of the retina. But at some point of the retina where the optic nerve exists. From where the optic nerve exists, this region contains no rod cells and cone cells, and this region is called optic disc. This region is called optic disc. We have already learned that. Now, what we have learned? Retina has two basic parts. What are the two basic parts? Two basic parts or layers of retina are, two basic parts of retina are, number one is pigment layer, which is also called retinal pigmented epithelium, retinal pigmented epithelium, and another is neural layer or neuronal layer. Neural layer, or we can say neuronal layer of the retina. Actually, what happens? Actually, retina is a layered structure. Retina is a layered structure with 10 distinct layers of neurons interconnected by synapses. But at your level, it is not required. I am not going into the details of that. Just for your understanding, I am writing it down that retina is a layered, L-A-Y-E-R-D, layered structure. Retina is a layered structure with 10 distinct layers of neurons interconnected by synapses. But what are those 10 distinct layers of retina? I am not going into the details of that because in ICSE examination that is not required. We need not to go into the details of that. In the higher classes, we will definitely go into the details of that, but in ICSE it is not required. Now I will be discussing about the cells of retina. What are the cells of retina? Cells of retina. Retina contains various types of cells. One among them is called epithelial cells. Epithelial cells. And these epithelial cells form the pigment layer. I have told that retina contains two basic parts. One is pigment layer and another is neural layer or neuronal layer. This pigment layer contains the epithelial cells, and that is why it is called retinal pigmented epithelium. So epithelial cells of the retina forms the pigment layer. Now, what are the other cells of the retina? The other cells of the retina are photoreceptor cells. Photoreceptor cells like rod cells, cone cells. We have already learned that. Now, number 3 is neuronal cells. Neuronal cells. We know that retina is consists of neuronal cells, and which are responsible for producing electrical impulses. And the fourth one is glial cells. Now, we have already understood epithelial cells. We have already understood photoreceptor cells, that is rods and cones, that is rod cells and cone cells. We have already understood neuronal cells because it produces the electrical impulses. But what are glial cells? These glial cells are non-neuronal cells. These glial cells are non-neuronal cells. Why these are non-neuronal cells? Because they do not produce electrical impulses. They do not produce electrical impulses. Then why these cells are important? These cells are important because they serve as support cells for the neurons. These glial cells serves as support cells for the neurons. There are several types of glial cells in human ocular tissue. There are several types of glial cells present in the human ocular tissue. The major type of glial cells that are present in the retina are malar cells. Let me write it down, otherwise you will forget. There are various or several types of glial cells in human ocular tissues. The major type of glial cells in the retina are called Muller cells. Now, what is the function of these Muller cells? Actually, they are responsible for homeostasis and metabolic support of the retinal neurons. It is not so important in your standard. Still, I am writing that they are responsible for the homeostatic and metabolic support of retinal neurons. What you have to understand is that the cells of retina comprises of 4 different types of cells. That is the epithelial cells, which forms the pigment layer of the retina, and the other 3 major cells which forms the neuronal layer of the retina are the photoreceptor cells, which comprises of the rod cells and cone cells, the neuronal cells, and also the glial cells. Is it clear to all of us? Now, let us move on to the next part. What is the next part? The most important part is the adaptation of retina. What do we mean by that? Adaptation of retina. What do we mean by adaptation of retina? Adaptation is the ability of the retina to adjust itself to various intensities of light. That means when it is dark, how the retina adapts itself. When it is light or bright light, how the retina adjusts itself to provide the vision. This is called adaptation of retina. So, adaptation is the ability, this is very important, ability of the retina to adjust itself to various intensities of light. Now, adaptation can be of 2 types. One is dark adaptation. Dark adaptation, that means how the retina adapts itself or adjusts itself in the dark, where there is low light levels. And another is light adaptation. Light adaptation. From the name itself, it is clear that how the retina adjusts itself in bright light. So, what happens in dark adaptation? What is dark adaptation? It is the ability of the retina to adjust itself in the low intensity of light, in the low intensity of light, that is in the dark. And what is light adaptation? Light adaptation is the ability of the retina to adjust itself in bright light, that is in high intensity of light, that is in high intensity of light. Is it clear? Now what happens in dark adaptation? In dark adaptation, here there is dark, that is there is dim light where the intensity of the light is very low. In dim light, what happens? In dim light, the pigment rhodopsin of the rod cells get activated. What happens in the dim light? The pigment rhodopsin of the rod cells gets activated, and this increases the sensitivity of the retina towards the light. This increases the sensitivity of the retina towards light. So we can see in the dark, so we can see in the low intensity of light, so we can see in the dark. These provides vision. This provides vision. So we can write it down. This provides PROVIDs. This provides vision at low light levels. Low light levels. But these do not mediate color vision. These do not mediate color vision. But they do not mediate. They do not mediate color vision. We cannot see the colors of object. They do not mediate color vision. But at least we can see, because the sensitivity of the retina towards light get increased, and that is why even in the low light we can see objects at least. Now what happens in light adaptation? In bright light, the pigment iodopsin of the cone cells get activated. So in bright light, the pigment iodopsin of the cone cells gets activated, and rhodopsin of the rod cells gets deactivated. Rhodopsin of the rod cells gets deactivated. Though this decreases the sensitivity of the retina towards light, yet they mediate color vision, because lots of lights are entering into the eyeball, lots of eyes are entering into the eyeball. So the sensitivity of the retina is might not be required so much as it is required in the dark. So what happens in bright light? The pigment iodopsin of the cone cells get activated, and the rhodopsin and the pigment rhodopsin of the rod cells gets deactivated. This decreases the sensitivity. This decreases the sensitivity of retina towards light. But they mediate color vision. And this is the reason in the daylight we can see the color of the objects, but in the night time we cannot see the color of the objects if the intensity of the light is very low. In the moonlight, can we see the color of the objects prominently? No, because in the dim light, the pigment rhodopsin of the rod cells gets activated. Though the sensitivity of the retina towards lights gets increased, yet they cannot provide the color vision. But during the daytime, the sensitivity of the retina gets decreased, because the pigment rhodopsin of the rod cells gets deactivated, but the pigment iodopsin of the cone cells gets activated, and this iodopsin of the cone cells provide the color vision. And why the everything is prominently Listen to us, because the lots of lights are coming into our eyeball. Lots of lights are entering into our eyeball, which is not possible in the dim light. Now, why this? I've said earlier that this part is very important. Why this is important? Because in ICSE 2019, one question came. What was the question? Explain how human eye adapts itself to bright light and dim light. So let me write the question. It is very important. In ICSE 2019, the question came, explain how the human eye adapts itself to bright light and dim light. So I think you can write these answers. How the human eye adapts itself to bright light and dim light. So how the human eye adapts itself to dark light, and how the human eye adapts itself to bright light, we have already discussed. So I think you can write the answers very easily. Now, similar question came in ICSE 2014. Similar question came in ICSE 2014. What was the question? Give scientific reason why we cannot distinguish color in moonlight. So what was the question? Let me write it down. Give scientific reason why we cannot distinguish colors in moonlight. I've already discussed that. What happens in moonlight? In moonlight, the intensity of the light is low. And when the intensity of the light is low, the pigment rhodopsin of the rod cells gets activated. And we know that rod cells cannot detect colors. It is only the cone cells which can detect colors. But the cone cells do not work in dim light. That is, they do not work in moonlight. So we can write it down. In moonlight, what happens? In moonlight, the intensity of the light is low. The intensity of the light is low. We can say it as dim light. The intensity of the light is low. Thus, the pigment rhodopsin of the rod cells gets activated. And we know rod cells cannot detect colors. Only cone cells can detect colors. Only cone cells can detect colors. But these cone cells, that is, they do not work in dim light. Whether the cone cells work in dim light? No, the cone cells do not work in dim light. So how can it give the color vision? In the dim light, where the intensity of the light is low, only rhodopsin of the rod cells gets activated. And they cannot provide the color vision. And that is the reason we cannot distinguish colors in moonlight. Hope this is clear to you. Now I will discuss another important part. That is, not only the rod cells and cone cells, iris also has a role in various intensities of light. Let me discuss that. Now I will discuss how iris works in various intensities of light. So, iris contains two types of smooth muscles. First, let me write the heading. Iris also has a role in various intensities of light, because it controls the size of the pupil. It controls the size of the pupil. What is pupil? The hole through which the light enters the retina. If this is iris, this is the pupil. This is the pupil through which the light enters the eyeball. Now, the iris contains two types of smooth muscles. This one is iris. This black part is iris, we know. What we have seen. This is ciliary body, this is iris. This is ciliary body, this is iris. This part is iris. And this opening is called pupil. So this is iris and this opening is pupil. Now, the iris contains two types of smooth muscles. What are those? They are dilator muscle, which is called dilator pupillae, and another one is sphincter pupillae. Sphincter pupillae. So the iris contains two types of smooth muscles. One is called dilator pupillae, another is called sphincter pupillae. Now let us see what happens in dim light and what happens in bright light. I have to move on to the next page. Okay. So let me make a column here. What happens in dim light? In dim light, what happens? The dilator pupillae contract. The dilator pupillae of the iris contract. The dilator pupillae of the iris. Let me be more specific. Of the iris. The dilator pupillae of the iris contract. And because of this, what happens? This results the iris to dilate the pupil. This results the iris to dilate the pupil. So, what happens in dim light? If this is the eye, if this is the iris, if this was the pupil, now in dim light, what will happen? This iris will make the pupil to dilate. The pupil will get dilated. So, if this is the iris, this is the pupil, and the pupil gets dilated. So in dim light, the dilator pupillae of the iris contract, and this results the iris to dilate the pupil. So what will happen? More light will enter into the eyeball because the pupil, the opening gets dilated. More light will enter into the eyeball, and this will help to have a vision. This will help to have a vision. If the pupil will not dilate, then what will happen? Less light will enter the eyeball and the vision will not be clear enough. Now in bright light, what happens? In bright light, what happens? The sphincter pupillae of the iris contract. The sphincter pupillae of the iris contract. And what will it will do? When the sphincter pupillae of the iris contracted, it just do the reverse thing. It results the iris to contract the pupil. So this results the iris to constrict the pupil. So what happens? If this is eye, if this is the iris, it will make the pupil to contract so that less amount of light can enter the eyeball. So if this is the iris, what we see here, the pupil gets contracted. The pupil contracts. So in easy way, what we can say, in dim light, the pupil dilates so that more light can enter the eyeball. Whereas in bright light, the reverse happens. The pupil contracts so that less light can enter the eyeball. And this is done by two types of muscles present in the iris. What are the two types of muscle? One is called dilator pupillae and another is called sphincter pupillae. In dim light, which muscles work? In dim light, dilator pupillae of the iris works. In dim light, the dilator pupillae of the iris gets contracted. Whereas in bright light, the sphincter pupillae of the iris gets contracted. So when the dilator pupillae of the iris gets contracted in dim light, this results the iris to dilate the pupil. Whereas when the sphincter pupillae of the iris gets contracted in bright light, this results the iris to constrict the pupil. So in this way, the iris has a role in various intensities of light. Hope this is clear to all of us. One of you text me that the concept of conjunctiva is not clear to you. What is conjunctiva? Let me discuss this again. Conjunctiva is a translucent tissue that lines the inside of the eyelids. So, what is conjunctiva? The conjunctiva is a translucent tissue that lines the inside of the eyelids and covers the sclera. Hope the concept of sclera is clear to you. That is the white of the eye. Now, what do we mean by translucent? We have come across three terminologies. One is transparent, one is translucent, and another is opaque. What is transparent? Transparent means a media, a material through which most of the light can pass through it, which is clear enough to see the other side of that material. Translucent means some part of the light can pass through it so that the other part seems hazy. And opaque means light cannot pass through it. Light cannot pass through it. So the example of opaque can be a brick, can be table, can be wood, can be book. Transparent means glass, water. These are transparent. Translucent means butter paper. Means through which the light cannot pass properly. Light can pass, but not all part of the light can pass through it. Okay. Suppose you take a paper and put oil on it. It will become translucent. When you put the paper on other surface, you can see what is written on that surface. But when you pull the paper upward, you cannot see what is there written. The picture will become hazy. So conjunctiva is a translucent tissue. It is neither transparent, it is not opaque. It is a translucent tissue that lines inside of the eyelids and covers the sclera, that is the white of the eye. And the white of the sclera is visible through the translucent conjunctiva. It is very important because this conjunctiva is in close vicinity with the sclera. Thus, the white of the sclera is visible through the translucent conjunctiva. Let me write it down. The white of the sclera is visible through the translucent conjunctiva. If you move the conjunctiva upward from the sclera, the white of the sclera might not be visible so prominent. As the conjunctiva is in closed vicinity with the sclera, therefore the white of the sclera is visible through this translucent conjunctiva. Hope this is clear to you. Now, the conjunctiva is highly vascularized with many microvessels. The conjunctiva is highly vascularized with many microvessels, and the conjunctiva covers the entire front of the eye except the cornea. If we see the front of the eye, where we will see it covers the entire front of the eye except the cornea. If this is the iris, this opening is called pupil, and this part is covered by a transparent membrane, and this transparent membrane which covers the iris and pupil is called cornea. This cornea is transparent because light can pass through this cornea and enters through the pupil into the eyeball. This pupil is the opening, central opening. This is the central opening of the iris. Now, this conjunctiva which is highly vascularized with microvessels, this conjunctiva covers the entire front of the eye. This conjunctiva covers the entire front of the eye except the cornea. The cornea is not covered by conjunctiva, but the white part of the eye, that is the sclera in the front of the eye, is covered by conjunctiva. So let me write it down. Conjunctiva covers the entire front of the eye, that is, it lies over the sclera except the cornea, that is, it lies over the white of the eye, it lies over the sclera in the front of the eye, but this conjunctiva does not cover the cornea, that is the transparent part. So, if anyone asks you what do you mean by conjunctiva, I will write the conjunctiva is a translucent tissue that lines the inside of the eyelids and covers the sclera. It not only covers the sclera in the front of the eye, it also lines the inside of the eyelids. This is very important. It also lies the inside of the eyelids. So hope the concept of conjunctiva is now clear to you.